building of the infrastructure. The very things you've said, the fire department is important to me. Our streets is important. Our main street, the revitalization of our downtown is important to our city. The ongoing work of our Riverwalk is important. Maintaining and leveling out our city staff and empowering them to do the job that they do and do well, without, as you said, the interference of staff or of council, unless where we're supposed to interact and be a part of that and supporting them. The difference being in what I will proffer as a leader of excellence, honoring process and people.
All I would say, and I know we've got to wrap up on this, but it's easy to list a Christmas list of what you want to have happen for the city. It's a lot harder to say how you're going to do it. Believe me, I've been doing it for the last 6 years in city government, 2 years on the ESD board, and almost over 3 years now on the Coquille School Board. It is easy to say what you want, and it is easy to tell people what they want to hear, but it is hard to have the knowledge and the experience to make the tough decisions to follow through. And I will say, I did offer my experience to the council. We had some members who didn't want to hear it. And I can't comment on what happens in executive session. If you are lucky enough to be mayor, you'll learn soon enough what it's like to be dealing with a city attorney. I will say this, we never got sued for what I did when I was mayor. I can't say what is or has not happened, but I think if you compare my record to the last 4 years, my leadership style was pretty darn good.
Final words?
Do I have a final word?
Yeah, you can just, this wasn't this still passing.
I didn't know. I thought this was...
I don't know. I'm following your lead, so.
Well, I got lost on that particular response. The beginning was pretty good. So those are all of my questions. So if you would like to just close now with your final comments, we'll give you each 2 minutes, and then we're going to take a break so that we can get back to our audience and let them participate. Yes, sir?
I would like to propose a question if I could.
That's going to be in the second half. We're going to let them have 4 minutes right now.
We're going to take a break in between.
Yeah, just so if you want to stretch and get some water.
Okay.
We have the building till 5:30, or excuse me, 6:30.
Okay.
So we
I'm
will
just
have
trying
plenty
to
of time.
understand the process.
Sure, sure.
If Sam and everybody else wants us to go, if it's fine with you, I'm glad to keep going. Whatever, I mean, if people want to ask, if they want to be involved now, if it's fine with Sam.
Okay, well, we can just start with the questions from the audience now. If you guys don't want to take a break, do you want to take a break and get some water, get some fresh air, and come back in 5 minutes, or do you want to just start asking questions? Sam goes, okay. If you can speak, go ahead. And this won't go any farther than it is.
There's been a lot of things thrown out from both candidates about process, about how this experience and that experience and the contrast between the two. There were some of the city projects that have been discussed, and there's several of those city projects that have existed since I've lived here in 2006. So if you may, I'd like to ask the mayor, the former mayor, where was the priority on those projects that have been talked about, even partially done and not done, and all the different monies that have been spent over the years since 2008 to bring a library into our community that's larger than the shoebox it's in now, that opens its doors to all the people of town. Where is the aspects of the fire department who's needed upgrade for quite some time? Where is that? And that has been an existing problem, as you yourself pointed
Absolutely.
out, former mayor, that during the Waterton time that was not ever taken care of. Now that Chief Farron's there, it will be taken care of. But you were mayor during the Waterton time. Why wasn't it taken care of, since he worked for the city and worked for you as a mayor? It's just a question I'd like to ask.
No, it's a fair question, Ken, and I think it's an interesting question. Now, so you want to talk about the library and the fire department. Are there any other outstanding projects?
Those are the two that stood out.
Well, I'll tell you, we could build a library now. With the urban renewal money we have available, combined with the money that's been privately raised, that would require evicting McKay's, which when we bought McKay's, and it was bought when I was mayor, I made it very clear at that meeting, I would never support evicting McKay's for a library. They're still raising money. They're paying us $4,000 a month plus a percentage of receipts. It's a good investment for the city. So that's sort of holding us up, is the moving of McKay's. We could get the library done. I want it done, but at the same time, I think any person who would shut down one of our bigger private sector employers in town for a library might want to get their head examined. And so,
And I agree with you on that statement.
no. Now, as for the fire hall, one of the issues we ran into with the fire hall is because we explored this, and if I recall, Chief Waddington explored the idea of funding measures, but it never went further than that. And one of the difficulties is when you're mayor, is that the fire chief doesn't directly work for you, he works for the city manager. And unless you have 4 votes on the council that direct the city manager to order somebody to do something, which still might be in total violation of the charter, and you don't want to get into that kind of a situation, it's very difficult. But I will say, when I was leaving office, they were looking at those funding measures. The biggest issue with the fire department when I was there was saving the ambulance from being privatized. Our former city manager, combined with Bay City's ambulance, and I'm sure Fran and Dave Chappelle remember this, came to us and made a very, very flashy presentation. Oh, you're going to save all this money. Oh, you're not going to have these PERS payments now. All the overhead will be ours. The problem is it would have reduced our response time by about, I think, 15 minutes. And 15 minutes in a situation where you're dying on the floor, I don't think I need to explain to you the severity of the consequences of a late arrival. And Chief Aaron, he was a rank and file paramedic at the time, came to me and said, Matt, you know, I know you're hearing all this stuff about how good of a deal it is. Our guys will quit if we go to Bay Cities. And despite the full court press, and some counselors were on board with this. And I went to the public. I talked about it in council. We included the public, talking about leadership through excellence. And we listened to our guys in the fire department. And so the biggest issue was saving that ambulance and keeping it in public hands so we have the really rock solid response time we have now. And then the next step was getting the new fire hall. They were looking into funding measures. My time in office ran out. Now Chief Barron and I have talked about extensively borrowing against future receipts on urban renewal to build a new seismically sound fire hall now without raising taxes. We could build a new library, build a new fire hall, no new taxes, and we could probably use some of that URA money to move McKay's to the GP site, something we've been talking about for 16 years. But you're right, municipal government moves slowly, and sometimes it moves at a snail's pace if the snail were sleep snailing. But the fact of the matter is, part of the reasons I'm running again is to try and just close the books on these projects. But you're right, my record wasn't perfect, and I tried to learn from my mistakes. I wouldn't consider those 2 mistakes, though. I won't evict McKay's, and I'm not going to raise taxes or go out for a funding measure for a new fire hall or library when we have the ability to do it now without raising taxes. But no, it's a legitimate question, and I appreciate it, Ken.
Can I just say, because I want to affirm not only Chief Waddington for his years of service, but Chief Barron, who's just done an excellent job, and our council, who has supported the fire department. And so we have experienced amazing support for our local ambulance, the Rotary, and many private individuals who have supported our Coquille Fire and Rescue. And all I want to say to that is I want to thank them for their support and resources and what they've given.
Sorry for the interruption. Just somebody wanted to say something, and it's a mayor's forum, so I don't think it's appropriate for that. Anyway, where were we? Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd just like to ask both of you how you see the role of urban renewal in promoting the downtown and in general promoting economic development of the community.
By the way, our city provided, it was live on the city page, a consultant for urban renewal. It was extremely informative. It's still on the city page, I believe, back in August. Extremely informative, and it identifies where the urban renewal district is, the area, and then talked about the process. I was appreciative of that, and I learned a lot. But definitely, the urban renewal funds are designated for the urban renewal area. So just as Matt has said, as a team coming together as council, working under the recommendation of Sam Baugh, Haley, and our directors, we would be wanting to look for opportunities to leverage those funds and begin to make decisions. Repeatedly and over the period of time, what you'll see in the minutes and what happens, and I'm sure Matt won't refute this, is things that are important to the city keep being tabled. And what happens in these meetings is it gets tabled and then it never makes it back, or it takes a really long time to make it back. And so I think part of what needs to happen going into 2021, and it's going to take some time, it's going to not just be 2021, it's going to take some time, is we might need to do some work in re-identifying where do we need to make those investments to get the biggest bang for our buck and not wait. Because every time we wait, that dollar gets more and more expensive.
Well, I think it's important to understand what urban renewal really is before, we talk about how to spend that money. Urban renewal is really redirecting your tax dollars, which you agreed to pay, for fire, police, infrastructure. Essentially, it's redirecting all your property taxes from schools, 4-H, the library, the county, and the city, so it can be given away to private businesses, essentially for nothing. And I tell you, if we operated a bank like we operate urban renewal, and the council were a board of directors for a bank, I'm pretty sure they'd be walked out of the council chambers in handcuffs. But the fact of the matter is, urban renewal districts are very, very funny creatures. Originally, they were created for the purpose of getting new fire halls. Warren Weiss will tell you all about it. But since then, they've been perverted into essentially corporate welfare. And now lots of our businesses do need help. And I think there are lots of things we can do to help these businesses with urban renewal. As long as we have it, we might as well have it working for the community good. Maintaining infrastructure, fixing streets, supporting the pool, the community building, a new library, a new fire hall. All of those things benefit the downtown core. As Sam will tell you, we were very lucky that the Sherwood building didn't light up the whole downtown core. So having better equipment for the fire department, having a new fire hall that can survive an earthquake, having better educational facilities, having better infrastructure, doing the things that help every business, as opposed to giving away free money to a business that'll burn down, like we had at the Sherwood building with our city investment. I tell you, I think we can do better. And one of the things I want to do as mayor is reform the way urban renewal operates. I want us to borrow from future receipts, to build a new fire hall, build a new library, do some major projects that benefit the whole community. Not just businesses, the whole community, because it's their money. It's really their money. And then we need to have a vote to abolish it and get that money back to the general fund where the people consented to have it to begin with. I think one of the problems with the loss of confidence in local government here in Oregon, not just in Coquille or in Coos County, are these gimmicks like franchise fees, hidden bills on the utility bill, an additional fee, and these URA districts, which really are a way to divert money away from what they're supposed to be used for and put them in private hands. And I tell you, that doesn't square up with me. And I think we should pursue some basic urban renewal form in the next 2 years.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, there's no question. What I don't want to do, you said urban renewal form, and then I heard you say abolish it, so I wanted to clarify. I don't want to do away with urban renewal, because if we send it into the general budget or general fund, it disappears, and we don't have a commitment or a sense of commitment to revitalizing our core. And I want to see our core revitalized. And so if that means the process of how people apply for urban renewal funds, how we want to direct it or focus it over the next few years, that if we have a plan together towards how that works, then start to begin to make decisions towards that, to that end.
I do want to clarify. The people would have to vote on abolishing it. I do not believe the council should unilaterally abolish it. I think, though,
I
after...
definitely didn't say that.
No. No, I'm just saying, no, that was not my intent. And I will say, though, I think after we do some of these major projects, we should ask the people, would you rather have your money going back to what it originally was intended for, public safety, infrastructure, streets, employees, or would you rather have it going to more businesses who could, frankly, if they had a sound business plan, go to a bank?
Did you have anything else to
No,
say?
that's fine.
Okay.
question here on my live feed. If anybody wants to go ahead.
Oh.
Get this ready. Go
I
ahead.
have a short question and a bigger question. Like, how does a citizen become a council member? And then, what is the process of that? And then, what can be done about the buildings that are in the core area that are just sitting vacant, that look like commercial buildings, but they're not being used for anything? I mean, nothing's really going on. How can we as a city somehow make a change in that? Is that clear?
Who do you want to go first, Suzanne?
To make them usable, you know?
Go ahead, Sam.
So the process, becoming council or mayor, is a process in which you go to the city office and throw your hat in the ring, fill out some paperwork, collect some signatures, and that begins the process for you. So I wanted to answer that question first. As far as our empty buildings in the core of our town, we do need help. Some of that could be happening through code enforcement. Some of that, honestly, I believe may be getting on a good plan and working together, and then beginning to woo or entice developers who will come in and help us revitalize some of those areas. If they're vacant or empty, who owns them? And what can we do? How can we encourage small businesses or boutiques or other types of shops to fill in our core area so that when people come, they have a place to visit? I love the idea of our river walk and our park. And so when people walk these areas and they filter in through the town, what do they filter to? In the safety of the buildings.
Sam pretty much answered your question on running for council. That said, if I get elected, there will be a vacancy on the council and you can apply for it. But that's a joke. That's a joke. But anybody can apply also if there's a vacancy. We had a vacancy recently. Councilor Chappelle filled it. And so barring that, though, the way to run is every 2 years. You take out a petition, get your signatures, go out there and run. Believe me, it's a lot of fun. Can't you tell? This is a blast. But I was going to say, though, that as far as the buildings, one of the issues we've got to figure out is why are the buildings vacant? And one of the issues you run into is a lot of these buildings are owned by folks who are out of state, who are professional slumlords, and who take tenants who can't find places anywhere else. One of the scams that was pushed when I was mayor, which I did everything I could to block, we were lucky, was an attempt to try and make our ground floor commercial buildings into apartments. That would have destroyed the downtown core. And because none of these slumlords, the couple who have buildings on First Street would never ever maintain it for commercial purposes. They just fleece low-income people, and the commercial space would be gone for residential. So I'm glad we blocked that. But the other issue is we need to get on code enforcement, because the main reason there aren't tenants and the main reason these buildings are not in a state of good repair is because they can't get loans and they can't get insurance. So the problem is, we get to urban renewal again, is I feel the urban renewal program has actually had a negative effect because it has not incentivized these building owners to work with insurers and work with banks to get their buildings up to code. Instead, all the taxpayers are giving me this money willy-nilly. And hell, the city wasn't even doing code inspections on these buildings before we gave the money away. And so, I think code enforcement is the key, and then working with the property owners to comply with our codes, get their buildings insured, and work with creditors to get their buildings up to snuff so they can get the kind of commercial business they want. And we can do that without putting the taxpayers on the hook. And that's what I'm committed to doing if I get back in there.
And I think if there are slumlords or property owners out of state, code enforcement helps mitigate any kind of fleecing, and it becomes totally not profitable. And then we can then hopefully change of ownership and begin to improve our corridor, if those are true.
Okay, I'm gonna pose this question from Hope Grundy. She's on the live feed. She would like to know if there's going to be plans for our parks regarding our outdated or non-usable bathrooms in our parks.
Well, Sam will tell you, and Haley will be the first to tell you, We have existing grants that we're deciding what to do with right now. And I know we have a tennis court grant, which I think would be perfectly usable on 5th Street Park to cover the tennis courts and then redo the bathrooms at 5th Street Park because they're in a state of disrepair. Again, that's something we may have to run by the legal beagles, but I know it's been talked about, and it's something we should do. We need to redo the bathrooms at Sturtevant Park. Sturtevant Park is our marquee park. And the fact that it has antiquated play equipment, the fact that it has beaten up horseshoe throwing pits, and I love throwing horseshoes, the fact that, you know, I'm glad that we can repair the castle, but the fact the castle's in the condition it's in, and the bathrooms. And so, no, Hope's question is a great question. It's about budget priorities, and it sounds like, and I won't speak for Sam, but it sounds like he and I probably agree we need better bathrooms, because what better way to represent your community to visitors than have good bathrooms?
Yeah, and those kind of improvements in our parks or downtown corridors say something to folks who visit our community, to businesses who want to invest. It says something, so absolutely, Matt's right. I think unleashing Haley, let her do her job, go after those grants, come up with a plan, and prioritize where we need to make those improvements and get the biggest bang for our buck, absolutely, because our outdoor spaces in the Coquille Valley are important, and it's important to our community for sure.
Right. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
This question is for, what's your name again?
Sam.
Sam.
Yeah. Not to confuse with that Sam.
Okay. As a Bandon Port Commissioner, and in case you don't understand, the Port District comes clear up here and up Fairview Road, and includes Myrtle Point, you know, a bigger area than you might think for a port. My question to you is, how do you see the city's relationship with the port in the future? We've worked well in the past. You've talked a lot about teamwork and collaboration, collaboration and leadership. How do you see the city's relationship with the port district?
And that was with the Bandon Port?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's vital. The Coquille River. I mean, everybody who comes to Coquille to visit us, not only do we visit our city, and in fact, we're down on our kayaks in the river, but the next place we go is Bandon. And the Coquille River in Bandon is magnificent. My understanding is part of the history of our community is steamboats, and steamboats that ran from the port up the river. I mean, if we could leverage some of that history and then maintain, not just maintain, but improve whatever that relationship looks like so that both communities can benefit from that, I think it's important. And so if it means leveraging some river recreation, but not at the sacrifice of the beauty and the nature of our valley, absolutely.
Thank you.
Did that help answer your question? Yeah, no question.
Well, Rick, you know, I know we've heard a few times the inference that I'm a fighter, you know, that I can be divisive. Well, I know you know, Rick, when I was mayor, we had a staff member and we had some counselors who were, you know, looking for a fight with the Port of Bandon, looking to secede, Coquille secede from the Port of Bandon. Now, I understand their reasonings. They felt like we weren't getting our fair share of our tax revenue, which is 50 cents per thousand, I think it is, for your property taxes. Now, I will tell you, I believed that we needed to stay with the Port of Bandon, and I'm glad we did, because one of the reasons we got the fish cleaning station done, one of the reasons we got those new docks down there, was because of our relationship with the Port of Bandon. And so, actually, you know, the Port of Bandon is an example of where I de-escalated a situation and was able to fight at the same time for things like the fish cleaning station and the kind of relationship that we built on so we could get the docks done. And, you know, I'm hoping we can work with the Port of Bandon potentially on some improvements to Sturtevant Park in the future also. But the Port of Bandon is vital to Coquille's success. We are stronger together than we are going alone. And I worked effectively with the Port of Bandon when I was mayor, and I'll work effectively with them again, and no, it's vital.
Thank you.
I have a question on this one. It says, the question is, as mayor, what would you do to recruit family wage businesses to Coquille?
Well, you went first on the last one. So, well, you know, one of the problems when we get into the realm of economic development is this belief that city government can somehow do, or state government, or county government, or the federal government, that government can somehow do better than the private sector and private investment. Now, I will tell you, one of the benefits of experience is I have seen these economic development schemes come and go and come and go, and usually it results in the taxpayers holding the bag and no jobs being created. There was a very wise governor of the state of Idaho once, a native Oregonian, Cecil Andrus. And Cecil Andrus once dealt with a lobbyist from a major employer who wanted to come to his state. And he said, well, all your neighboring states have promised me tax breaks, regulatory breaks, incentives, tax credits, all these things. What are you going to give me? And he goes, you know what I'm going to give you? I'm going to give you what I give every other business in my state. And that is good streets, good schools, affordable health care, and good infrastructure. Because if your workers are healthy, educated, and you can get your goods to market, you will have a successful business that doesn't just last for a tax break, but lasts permanently. And that has always been my economic development philosophy at the city. I think sometimes we have tilted at windmills to the point of exhaustion. And you know what? It turns out that if you get back to basics, if we can just fund our basic services, fire, public safety, our water and sewer, our, keep working effectively with our very successful school district, working with the Port of Bandon, working with the Oregon Parks Department to make our place more livable. We will create an environment for investment, and we can succeed, but we need to break away from this race to the bottom of giving promises and breaks to companies that it won't make any difference to them one way or the other. They're just using us to bid against other communities. And so I would say, let's invest in ourselves, and then that'll create an environment for investment for others.
Absolutely. Everything Matt said. The infrastructure is key, but what I want to say is also celebrating entrepreneurship, new businesses, the ideas of the younger generation that are coming up behind us, that everything we do now speaks to legacy for the future. And, helping out at the high school, obviously every kid said, right, you ask the high schoolers, 17, 18-year-olds, what are you going to do when you graduate? The first thing they say is, leave Coquille, right? I mean, because they want to experience the world. They want to adventure. And what I would say to them, I said, you mark my words, you'll adventure, you'll experience family, and you'll suddenly realize the grass isn't greener on the other side. And what happens is we're experiencing families who come back because they remember their home. They remember that this is a good place to raise families. So encouraging our families in entrepreneurship and businesses and creating jobs is going to be important. And part of economic growth, we know, is going to be land. We have land.
We do have that.
We have land. People, we have labor here for sure. Capital, our city has capital. And so if, part of that plan means we encourage new businesses to develop and come in. Doesn't mean we give them a free handout, I agree, but we encourage new businesses to come in.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes, sir?
Both of you have spoken extensively about the need to revitalize downtown and about your ability to create relationships. I would ask that each of you share one specific thing that you would do to encourage the beleaguered business owners and property owners in the downtown area who are dealing with tragedies all the way from COVID-19 to the devastation and destruction of a fire. And a little bit of encouragement, and one specific thing that you would do to encourage people in the downtown area and give us hope that maybe there is a chance that a business can survive in Coquille.
Whose turn?
I went last. I went first the last time.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, so for one, related to COVID-19, there's obviously some government assistance to small businesses. We may not be able to scale to that kind of scale from our reserves, but certainly we can be involved in part of the conversation for our businesses and how do we encourage not only their survivability, but then their future. And so how we do that by investing in the community, and especially in that downtown corridor area, which, by the way, when we say main corridor, in my mind, I picture Central Boulevard. In fact, I'm so thrilled those sidewalks are going. I know our whole community is absolutely thrilled about those sidewalks. So when I think main corridor, when I see the traffic and how people walk and live, that our main corridor is downtown, but our Central Boulevard connects all of our communities. Man, it would be amazing to improve our sidewalks the rest of the way into our main corridor downtown so that it's safe for our children. I mean, all of us see the kids out there walking on the shoulder of the road, and as a first responder, it creates havoc and panic for me. But anyways, I've gotten off of that. And so just how do we have conversations with our businesses? What are they struggling with? If we can speak to that, how do we resource them? Listen. I think part of the main role of our city government and our council and our staff is listening to our city. What's groaning? What's groaning? What's crying out? Listening, understanding what the main plan is, but how do we listen and then infuse into that a process?
Now, Paul, you know, you and I have had our disagreements, and that's fine, but you were hit hard, and that's awful. And I feel very, very bad for you and your tenants. That what happened, you own the Sherwood building, and it got lit on fire, and that's awful. It's awful. I think when we look, and you were double hit, because obviously there's the pandemic, there's the shutdowns, and then there's that. I think when we look at the tools local government has, we need to follow through on our commitments of maintaining basic affordable services. That's why we need to keep water and sewer rates affordable. That's why we need to have outreach, code enforcement, things, and a proactive and accountable urban renewal policy that can help our building owners, but maintain accountability for the taxpayers' investment. But I think for the needs of most of the business owners in Coquille, what they're going to need is a larger amount of relief that only the state and federal government can give. And part of having experience in relationships is that the mayor of Coquille can lobby our state lawmakers, our federal lawmakers, and work to try and get relief, and whoever the next mayor is. This is going to have to be one of their top priorities. We got the good news last week. What is it? We have Sam, we have $100,000 coming in COVID relief for municipal government. Well, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander, and maybe we can help offset some of these losses to businesses through federal and state aid. But unless you're seen and heard, you're not known to the funders, and that's one of the things I'm going to work very proactively and very aggressively on if I am mayor again. And we need to get relief to our business owners because we do not want things to get worse. When I left office as mayor, our poverty rate in this community was, I think, 45%, which was staggeringly high. Now it is about 59%. And that was over 4 years. The poverty and the challenges in this community to find jobs and affordable housing are an undue burden on most families and most entrepreneurs, and we need to find a way, working with our partners in government and in the private sector, to get them the resources they need. And that's one of the reasons why I've supported working with the South Coast Development Council. Mr. Baugh used to be their director. He remembers I supported the city maintaining our relationship with them, because then they can work with a business owner like Paul, who's been hit by COVID or a tragedy, and help line them up with those partners. So I think part of it is code enforcement, a proactive, accountable urban renewal program, maintaining affordable government services at the local level, and then effectively lobbying for relief for our businesses.
And I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the owner. My wife and I refer that as to the big building. The moment we drove into Coquille, instantaneously we fantasized about Coquille. It's such an iconic building, so I'm sorry for your loss. And I was on that fire, and so that's any kind of loss like that in the year 2020 is just extra painful. And so for many of our businesses who've lost income and wage, we've lost so much. You know, I think in Coquille, no matter who wins the vote, it's more than just our city government. It's our citizens. There are so many either retired or current professionals, even my own wife who works for Oregon Advanced Health, in all of the collaborations that we have in this community. Coquille needs to leverage our citizens, their experiences, get them involved, draw them in to begin to be involved and weigh in and have a voice, coach and mentor not only our own leaders, but the next generation, and connecting our communities. I've said before, and Matt's already alluded to this, and thinking about Bannon life is hard in rural America. It can be, but it's even harder for trying to go it alone. And so leveraging the experiences, celebrating the history and the experience of our city, and drawing folks to the table is going to be really important over this next year and the end of this year.
Alrighty, I think that we're gonna have to wrap up the audience participation. I have no questions. Sam, do you?
I have one more on here that says, would you spend money to promote the GP property or spend the money on the city and let the property sell itself?
Who went last?
Who did?
He did, so you go.
Well, you know, one of the things our city attorney in 1990, and I was not on the council in 1990, I was in preschool, but I will say, one of the things he told the city council, according to Lauren Weiss, he told me this, and I've heard this in public from him, so I hope he doesn't mind this out of line, but it was Judge Gillespie before he was a judge, and he said, if you buy that property, which we got it for $1, because GP had considerable property tax responsibility for it and industrial cleanup. But they told the city, if you buy it for $1, you will make so much money on this. You will make all this money, it will sell itself. Well, it's been 30 years. I actually thought it might be a little bit grimly amusing to hold a 30th birthday party of city property management and economic development for the GP site, but I decided 2020 was bad enough as it is, and in a better year it might have been fun, but not this year. But we have very good realtors working for us. Pacific Properties, Jenny Forbes, Sherry Edwards, their whole team, rock solid people. They've already made progress on some of the lots. And the great news is they work on commission. So we're not taking money from other things to sell the properties. The signs out there, they pay for that. And the work they do is out of their pocket. And, you know, if all works out, they will make the city money, they will make us future tax revenue, and they will make themselves and their business, a local business, some good money. And I think that's the way to do it. I don't think we should be diverting money from essential projects like fire, public safety, and maintaining our infrastructure to market property and try and do what real estate agents already do far better than us.
Yeah, to get property we own. So a lot of smarter people will know better than I would, but if we're needing to build a fire department, we can't free up McKay's yet, that may be a site, it may not, but having a plan for that GP site for the future, but investing in our city and making sure if we're investing in the GP site, I believe it's investing in making sure we have the plan we want so that the right businesses or private enterprises are going into that space that matters for our city, that makes more sense for our city.
We have about 5 more minutes for closing arguments, if you have any, so I think you would go first on closing arguments, sir. Any really urgent questions? Because we have 5 minutes left in the building and then I have to close the doors. Everything okay? Really? You already had one. Sorry.
I'm just really curious. Can I not answer?
Well, they have 5 minutes for closing
You can
arguments.
take it out of my time. What's your question?
Okay.
Which one of you wants a hotel here the most?
You know, I will say, I'll say this. We have an amazing city right here in the Coquille Valley. One of the reasons we moved here is not just because of the church, but we genuinely love the area. I am not a coastie. I support the coast, but I love the weather in Coquille. And so I believe people will come to Coquille through things that we do to invest in the city that draws them here. I think a hotel, we would benefit. It might benefit better along 42, but we might look at a way that it helps not just our city, but also our, obviously we have a motel inside the city, and so that it serves our community the best. But I don't know that it's so much who's the first one who will invest or support it. It's that once we work together as a team, what makes the most sense for our city and how we invest. And if we woo a developer who wants to come in and build that, God bless them. If that fits the plan, that's where we go.
Now, I know Fran is getting sick of me bringing her up, but Fran worked on this vision for years and years, and it is a ambitious and a worthwhile idea to get a hotel on the GP site. I can tell you, when I was mayor, I went to organizational groups like the OSAA. I went to the Oregon Sports and Activities Association, or Oregon Sports Activities Association. I always get those acronyms wrong, so forgive me. But, and I went to the Mayor's Association about doing the Mayor's Conference here. They said, we love the outdoor recreation. The problem is, we cannot, and we could use your community building for all the things we need to use it for, or some other areas, but the problem is the lodging. Now, I will not support public subsidy to build a motel, or a hotel, or a larger motel. But if somebody wanted to make an investment, I think it would be reasonable to use every resource we have available, especially if they're in city limits, obviously, because we aren't going to invest in something outside of city limits, but to to help them in every way, to position them on the GP site, because then we could attract conferences, activities, tournaments, things that can drive economic development for this community. Fran worked on it for years. We weren't able to get it done. I wasn't able to get it done when I was mayor, but I think it's something we need to explore more and more, because there is all this pent-up demand for recreation because of COVID, and we need to be able, especially from the folks pent up in the cities. We don't want them to stay. We want them to invest their money and leave, because we don't want to become like Portland. But the good ones can stay. But the fact of the matter is, I would love to have a hotel or a larger motel, but at the same time, we shouldn't leave the taxpayers holding the bag. So I want a motel or a larger motel or hotel, but I think the devil is often in the details.
And to that point, Matt and I are going to agree. The infrastructure will speak to that. So building the infrastructure, the cohesion in the city, and the decisions that we make for the future is going to help those kinds of developers want to come in and make that kind of investment. So it may mean that our own city may invest more, for instance, in Sturtevant Park or down near the GP site, so that it does attract some of those outdoor activities, if it makes sense in the plan, and we can support those folks who are visiting.
Alrighty then. Closing arguments, get about 2 minutes, so a minute apiece. Building. Sorry.
What's that? Oh,
We have
building?
about a minute apiece because of building. We gotta give it back at 6:30.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming and taking your time to come out and experience this. I want to thank you for your support. Many people absolutely love this city. I as well love this city. I am going to be investing wholeheartedly into it. And as your next mayor, if I'm blessed to be voted as that, I want you to know I'm making the commitment. And Matt and I have shook hands that I'll be working, if I'm blessed to be voted, I'm going to be working with Matt and excited. I want to leverage some of those connections for the benefit of our city, but working our team collectively together with excellence. And that's what I'm focused on. And I do want to appreciate Sam, all of our departments, our public works, our fire, police, all of the folks have just done a fabulous job in serving this community. It's through such challenging times.
First, I want to thank Suzanne and the folks who helped her on putting this together. We probably wouldn't have had any forum whatsoever if it wasn't for Suzanne and the folks who took the initiative. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know now is a tense time with the virus. If the leader of the free world with the best security and healthcare in the world can get this virus, anybody can and can be hospitalized with it. And so it took courage to show up here today. And also I want to thank Sam. We've had some terse words here, but that's part of democracy. Give and take, it's part of the process. And so I salute Sam for having the guts to put his name on the ballot. We may disagree on some things. Obviously, we agree on a lot of things. But the next 2 years in city government, and for our community, our county, our state, and our country, are going to be unprecedentedly trying times fiscally, economically, and socially. And we need the leadership that has a proven record of results. I've been able to work effectively with council and staff in the past. When I was mayor before, we were able to triple the street improvement fund and double the reserve fund without raising taxes, and adopt a timber policy that has made us $2.6 million in the last 6 years. I'm proud of that record. There's work left undone. There's more work to be done. And I intend to work effectively with all of the people in the community and the entire council, even the ones who don't think that well of me. That's fine. It's our job to put our big boy and big girl pants on and get to work for the folks, because they deserve it. We should have a government that is as good and as rich and as vibrant as the potential of this community, and I intend to follow through like I did before. Thank you, and please remember to vote.